What's up? Good evening to you, Dawg Nation. This is Jeff Sentell, DawgNation.com. It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? That means it's before those hallowed hedges, brought to you by Kroger. You want to learn about Georgia football recruiting? Do you want like an IV of Georgia recruiting, Georgia intel, the latest, what's coming down the track with Georgia football's roster? We got a lot to talk about tonight. Thank you, NCAA. Thank you, NCAA Reform, for giving us a really plum story. We're going to talk about how Georgia now looks to have an extra 5 or 6 potential scholarships per class. No, we're not talking about the transfer portal. We're also previewing a huge weekend for Georgia on the recruiting trail. Georgia, the dead period opens up July the 25th. That means it's a quiet period, which means the only contact can take place would be on-campus contact. And look for Georgia to bring in a host of visitors. Who's on the way? Which 5 stars are on the way? We're going to talk to you about that tonight on Dawg Nation. Is the Bulldog program on a commitment watch for a 2026 in-state prospect? I think so. It's something to watch for this weekend because the 2026 class at its second commitment of that signing cycle. That's coming. You want a little bit more? How about this? Georgia got its 21st commitment of the class last weekend. I was there at New Mercy's Church in Lilburn when Georgia added Cortez Smith. What was it feeling like? What was it like when Cortez Smith committed to Georgia? We've got a Dawg Nation conversation about that as well. We'll also revisit a prediction, kind of a prediction. All I'm going to say is 2 things that made Ryan Montgomery, the Georgia quarterback commit, have a really big smile on his face back at the Elite 11 in California in late June. What was going through Ryan Montgomery's mind? Did he already know? Did he have an idea? Does he have an idea what's coming down the track? We'll take a look at that as well. I'll tell you this, I don't know if it's possible for Ryan Montgomery to smile bigger than he did in that conversation we had from about a month ago. But Dawg Nation conversations, we got all that stuff. But first of all, we start off every Before the Hedges show brought to you by Kroger with our Big 5. And let's talk about some big 5 stars that are set to be visiting Georgia this weekend. We've got a list, but let me tee it up. Georgia has something every summer. It's kind of like a summer send-off. Everybody's got a different name for it. I think Ole Miss has something called Juice Weekend. I think it used to be back in the day, Auburn would call it Big Cat Weekend. I believe Notre Dame calls it Grill and Chill. What Georgia's got this weekend is just one last chance to kind of reinforce the bonds, the camaraderie of the 2025 class before all those young men are in fall camp for their football teams. Guys, we're about 3 weeks away from real high school football, if that, maybe 2.5. And then Georgia will open fall camp in early August as well. So it's one more time for the class to get together, hang out. Georgia calls it kind of a cookout, but we've seen it kind of evolve over the years. One of the things that's happened is Georgia, we got some video of this, it turns into a huge competition among the recruits. You've got like sack races. It feels like a camp. You've got them basically jumping along the House of Pain with some of the most chill activity you'll kind of ever see from Georgia football players inside the House of Pain. There's dizzy bat races, I believe, going back to a long-standing tradition, and it's kind of evolved now with Georgia's indoor facility. You see the slip and slide right there. I remember the stories of Keely Ringo, Richard LeCount III. They were getting Kirby to get on the slip and slide. I don't think Coach Smart gets on the slip and slide anymore, but you see they soap that thing up with Ivy soap, and they go across. Part of kind of a commit Georgia major target Olympics right there. And it's always a lot of fun to see, like, look at that distance right there on the slide. This is video kind of collected from over the years there about what the cookout looks like. So now you guys got a good idea perhaps of what actually the cookout actually is. It's just a way for there's going to be some food, there's going to be some hanging out, there's going to be some competition, because that's what the Georgia Bulldogs do. It's kind of going to be arranged by position group, tight end, running back, things of that nature. Good little look there at the cookout. So now you know what. Let's talk about who. Let's take a look at the list, and we got to start off with a 5-star spree. 5 stars, Elijah Griffin and Justus Terry are expected in Athens this weekend. Now, folks, it's Wednesday. I don't even know what I'm doing this weekend sometimes until my wife and my kids tell me, or my job tells me what to do. But right now, we've got a list of names that we've been able to confirm that we expect to see in Athens this weekend. Might be on Friday, might be on Saturday. But as always, plans can change. I'm in contact with a lot of the commitments right now. Some can't do it because of team photo shoots. Some can't do it because somebody's got their 90th birthday in the family. One of them's kind of tentative because he might be an uncle in the class. His sister is expected on baby watch or whatever. So that's kind of wait and see for a lot of these guys. But Elijah Griffin, number 3 overall prospect out of Savannah. He visited Georgia for an unofficial back in June. It's always good for the Dogs to get Elijah back. You know, Miami, USC, South Carolina, Clemson, those are the contenders there. Mr. Justus Terry out of Manchester, Georgia, the barber, we could call him the Bulldog barber. Justus decommitted from USC over the weekend. Another former decommitment from Ohio State, Jonte Gilbert out of Atlanta. There's a lot of noise here about Jonte. He makes his decision on August the 10th, but Jonte will be back in Athens this weekend. He camped very well in Athens. Everybody likes to see a Georgia-Alabama recruiting battle. Here's Anthony Turbo Rogers, could kind of feel that multi-dynamic all-purpose back in that James Cook mold, in that Kenny McIntosh mold. That's something I thought Georgia's team last year, a year ago, was missing. Lots of, you're going to see, those are the major undecided targets, but also you would see a smattering, I expect a smattering of the 2025 commitments on the list as well. Let's take a look at some of those names right there. Isaiah Gibson, the 5-star edge, also a former decommitment from USC. Ryan Montgomery, the quarterback out of Findlay, Ohio, learned this week that his area of Findlay near Toledo is called the Black Swamp. Didn't know that there was a black swamp in Ohio, but I do now. Shamari Earls out of Chester, Virginia. He's a top 100 prospect. He was a flip from South Carolina. Stephon Shivers, the big nose, I think an integral part of the 2025 class, because that nose tackle, that zero tech is so important for what all the other pieces, Georgia, Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart, try to put together around that class. Lots of other names. I heard from Darren Akinabon. He's going to be in Athens as well. So I expect that list to grow, list to swell a little bit. A lot of the local in-state commitments, it wouldn't surprise me to see Ethan Barbour there, Bo Walker, Mason Short, guys like that. Dontrell Glover is kind of tentative right now. Todd Robinson is tentative right now. I do know that Tyler J. Williams won't be able to make it. Other names like Talent Taylor could be expected to be there as well. But there's also a chance here, much like we saw Ethan Barbour come to the – really, it was one of the things, that the final straws where Ethan got a really good feel that he needed to be a dog, and he had to be a dog. This is the next class to come. These are the rising juniors, and wow, Georgia's got some big names already expected in town this weekend. I don't know if these gentlemen will be there for the entire cookout. I think Jared Curtis will, the 5-star quarterback commit out of Nashville, but big name here, number 2 offensive tackle in the class. Jackson Cantwell right here out of Missouri. 5-star offensive tackle, number 2 offensive tackle in the class. He is a tremendous track and field participant. He was named the Gatorade Track Athlete of the Year just coming out of his sophomore year. Jackson Cantwell is approaching national records in the shot put and the discus with how well he does that. He's actually trained with former Georgia great Reese Hoffa, former Olympian Reese Hoffa. Jackson's got some Olympics in his background, his family background as well. Also another name, Aaron Gregory out of Douglasville, Georgia, Douglas County. Georgia kind of been waiting a while to really amp up for recruiting of Aaron Gregory, but they're beginning to do so there as well. Some of your bigger weekend visitors right there. It's going to be another visit weekend, and really it's going to be the last one for Georgia until the second, because Georgia will host some recruits. I'm expecting them to host some recruits for the kickoff game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium against Clemson. But then the following week, Georgia will take on Tennessee Tech, and that's the next time you will see a lot of visitors in Athens after this weekend. So lots of visitors. Everybody likes to know about 5 stars. Is very encouraging for 2 players like that, Terry and Elijah Griffin, to be there back in Athens this weekend. But that's number 1 on Before the Hedges. Let me take you to number 2. And I thought this was very interesting. We're going to revisit a conversation here with quarterback commitment Ryan Montgomery. I was out there with him at the Elite 11 in Redondo Beach, beautiful Redondo Beach, California, where it feels like there's a fan on you at all times when you're around the coastline in California. But this was at the Elite 11, and I asked him about 2 things, and both of these things made Ryan Montgomery very happy. These are all in-state 5 stars we're talking about here. I asked him a question about 5-star tight end Elias Williams out of Camden County, and then I asked him what he thought about the in-state 5 stars, Isaiah Gibson at the time and Justus Terry at the time. That was right after they just decommitted from USC. I asked him what he thought about those kind of in-state 5 stars. It's always good to know what QB1 is thinking. Let's check that out right now on Before the Hedges. Is there anybody you can't wait to practice with, throw to? Is it a guy like Elias? Is it a guy like, I mean, like you probably look at that and start foaming at the mouth, right?
Oh my gosh, it would be so. I just think it'd be such a luxury to just have one of those guys on my high school team.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, like I just can't wait. I mean, I love my guys to death, but I can't wait. Like, I mean, like a guy like Elias, 6'7". I mean, I think he might be 6'8". Like, he's huge.
Always open, right?
He's always open.
Ryan, you got a message out to DawgNation. I'm sure you noticed the 2 decommitments recently with Isaiah Gibson and Justus Terry. You got a big grin. You don't need to tell me a lot with it, but you can grin a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you're sitting there savoring about adding dudes like that to the class.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say anything, but, I mean, they know the move. Like, let's be honest. I mean, no better place to be in the country. So, I mean, they're going to get developed better than anywhere. And definitely going to be huge to have them if they come. So super excited for that, and we're coming for that number 1 class.
Ryan, that smile says that's a man that knows something, doesn't it? Is that a smile that says he knows something? Obviously, Isaiah Gibson decommitted, quickly recommitted back to Georgia, or committed to Georgia. That commitment's definitely going to last. Isaiah is expected to be back in Athens this weekend for the cookout, as we mentioned earlier. But then there's Justus Terry. The thoughts that Ryan Montgomery had there about Justus Terry, those are pretty telling. And I guess in the TV business, folks would call that compelling video. Not going to say much, and that's kind of what Isaiah Gibson told me about Elijah Griffin and Justus Terry as well. I know they're in constant communication with one another, Elijah, Isaiah, and Justus. But all he said is, he told me a couple weeks back, he says those 2 know where home is, and just kind of left it at that. Not going to say much, not going to spill any tea, but there's just great momentum there with those two guys with the Georgia class of 2025. Always interesting to hear Ryan's comments there on Elias Williams, 6'8". He was one of the guys that when I asked Ryan who he really wanted to work out with in the class and throw with and get a chance to get on the grass with, Elias Williams was one of those guys. You heard him talk about how he was always open, how big he was. And, you know, Ryan was like very, very, very nice kid, always says the right thing. But Ryan was like, man, I love my guys. I love my guys. He's talking about his Findlay High School teammates, but he's like, he just loved to have one of those guys, like one of those Georgia receivers. Talon Taylor, Thomas Blackshear, Landon Roldan now, those guys. And then Elias Williams looks like one of the premier pass targets in this class. He just loved to have those guys for his high school season, and then he could really do some damage in that black swamp in Toledo, Ohio area right there. So Ryan, quite giddy about the future, giddy about the fact of throwing the Elias Williams, giddy about the potential of maybe seeing 5 stars like Isaiah Gibson, Elijah Griffin, and Justus Terry. Potentially, let's throw all those if clarifiers out there, if those young men do join the Georgia class in 2025. That's number 2. Let's talk about number 3. And number 3, you know how a great baseball team likes to have a run producer, or at least to get the guys around, move the guys over, high on base, set the table for the 4-hole, the 5-hole. That's what we always try to do here with Before the Hedges. We want some sustenance and some substance there in the 3-hole of our Big 5 here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Let's talk about, well, I've whetted your appetites right there. Let's talk about, this program is always brought to you by Kroger, and it is back to school. Back to school is on your mind. Guys, Kroger has A+ savings on school supplies. Stock up on school supplies under $3 and up to 30% savings on back-to-school gear. It's that time. My kids are already getting parking passes and stuff like that for their high schools. They're getting ready for senior moments, senior pictures, things like that, getting ready for that back-to-school grind. My son says he needs a backpack. I probably got that at Kroger, too, with all their back-to-school gear. You can check it out for yourself. Visit your local Kroger or go to Kroger.com today to start saving. Look at that. We've delved into the 5-star Kroger commercial time here on Before the Hedges. Remember those days on the Hedges where we had me and Brandon and Connor eating some wings with Chef John out in our aprons? Well, now we've got some animation there that looks like crafted out of Pixar or something like that. So let's get back to number 3 here. Talking about the number 3 hole, talking about a big piece of meaty NCAA news. And here's what it means to Georgia folks. First of all, your expectations for the roster and NIL and collectives, and they're called sweeteners now, that number is going to go up. Why is it going to go up? Because the NCAA is now part of the settlements with the House and fulfillment, some of the legislation that's been going back and forth where some of the schools, all the schools had to pay some reparations and everything else. One of the new policies coming out of it is a new scholarship mandate across all sports. Baseball's getting more scholarships, gymnastics, volleyball, basketball as well. But football, the breadwinner around every university, we can now expect this came out today by Ross Dellinger, I think, had it first, Yahoo Sports, and then also on3.com had it. But there's a new number where the increased scholarship count across multiple sports is now going to go up to 105 in football. It's crazy. Some of the better language in all of this is it means that Georgia no longer have to have 85 on scholarship at one time. You can never go over that threshold. Now I've learned with this new legislation that actually it's only when your season begins where you have to be under the 105. That's very interesting right there in terms of scholarship and divvying those up. But by and large, Georgia tries to sign about 28, 29, 30, counting the portal, bring in that much of a turnover on their roster. And now this is going to mean, folks, that Georgia was at 85. Now they're going to go up to 105. That means basically another 4 or 5 scholarships per class that now can be added to the tally. I think they're trying to get to that number of 105 where, some of the roster sizes right now were 105 for practice. What is that going to mean to walk-ons? I think walk-ons are definitely very much in doubt, but you're going to have a lot of those. I personally feel that a lot of those guys that are walking on will now be getting scholarships because, let's face it, those first 85 players are not going to get any cheaper when it comes to adding it. But there's going to be more room, bigger sizes of the room. I don't think the quarterback room can go up more than 4 or 5 because that's just so very hard to do at that position. But you're going to see Georgia get a lot deeper, maybe more running backs. Remember, Dell McGee's number for running backs used to be 5. That's kind of a Georgia stipulation. Maybe it goes up to 6 or 7 now. Georgia always carries a lot of wide receivers because Kirby Smart likes to see those guys on special teams as well as defensive backs. So you're going to see the Georgia roster increase. You're going to see the amount of signees per year increase. You're going to see that NIL increase because all this playoff money, all this cash flow, all these bigger conferences, these schools feel like it's fair. They feel like it's equitable, and they feel like it's fiscally responsible for them to add all these scholarships. And told, the reporting here says that Georgia and other NCAA FBS schools, the Power 4 schools, will go up about 60-plus scholarships now across a multi-tier of sports right now. So this is a recruiting show. This is a UGA football. This is a forecasting the future show. And I thought that part right there was something that you guys definitely need to know about, definitely needed to talk about here tonight on Before the Hedges. Cool? How's that? Any questions? That's what that comment section is for. We're live tonight, DawgNation, if you guys are keeping up with things. So if you have a question, you got any discussion you want to have about that, feel free to engage a great dialogue with everyone, including your show host here in the comment sections on your respective, favored, preferred social platform. Appreciate that. Appreciate everybody joining us again tonight as well. That's number 3. Let's move on to number 4. Everybody loves the phrase commitment watch. I know some people start barking or they start salivating, perhaps like Pavlov and his canines or whatever, but 4-star athlete Jontavius Wyman is going to make his decision on Saturday. Now, first of all, this young man's from Jonesboro. Been many a moon since Georgia was involved with a target from Jonesboro High School. Been quite a while. Maybe other sports is different, but football, very, very long time since Georgia had some recruiting action and recruiting interest in Jonesboro High School. That's a beautiful school, by the way, if you've never been there. But Jontavius Wyman, who does a lot of everything. They call him Mr. Everything. He's a 4-star athlete, receiver, corner. I believe Georgia's recruiting emphasis for him is at defensive back, specifically a cornerback. That's Coach Donta Williams. That's Coach Travaris Robinson. You want to learn a little bit about Jontavius Wyman. We had a chance to talk to him earlier this month and kind of get a feel for what he is as a prospect and what he's looking for. Does that smell like, does that sound like that's another DawgNation conversation coming down the tracks? Well, it should. I want to show it to you right here and right now on Before the Hedges. So when I watch your film, or when any coach watches your film, what do you hope they pick up about your game? Like, what matters to you the way you play?
My IQ, and then you can see the way I play football. It's like I play the game the way like everybody can't play it, and then I can play every single place on the field. So it's like you might see me at this spot one play, and then the next spot one play. It's like you could just see that I'm a playmaker.
Mr. Everything, right? You've been called that. How do you feel about that?
It feels great being called that, but I know it's still a lot more work to do.
I want to ask you about one specific game. Maybe your career game was the Dutchtown game.
Yes, sir.
What all did you do in that game to light up the scoreboard?
Beginning of the game, well, I had missed practice the day before that, so I was benched the first quarter of on defense. So on offense, the first drive, we was on the 2-yard line. I had fumbled, like in the end zone, so I was just laying down for a little second, like in my head, and got up, and then I was just thinking. So then we was able to play defense, and then that's when I got scored on, so that was their first score, 7-0. So went back down on offense, and then we was on like the 29-yard line, and then we ran the goal, and that was my first touchdown. We came back the next drive. I intercepted the ball. It was a pick six for like 60 yards. And then the next drive, I was able to get a play where it would change the game. We was able to get back on offense, but we wouldn't capitalize the score. So we went back on defense. That's when I was able to get another pick six right before the half. And then that's when they put me at quarterback for 5 wide, and I was able to throw a touchdown. So I had 5 touchdowns before the second half. And in the second half, I got another interception.
Three interceptions?
Yes, sir.
So hold on. So you missed practice, sat out a little bit. you fumbled early in the game, and you're like, man, what else could go wrong, right?
Yeah.
And then from that, you had 5 scores.
Yes, sir.
What was it? 1 rushing touchdown, or it was 1 passing touchdown,
No,
2 pick sixes?
Yeah, no, it was 4 touchdowns, yeah.
4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then you had an interception in the second half. Huh?
Yes, sir.
How did you feel like after that game? Did the coaches say you should miss practice before every game like that?
No, it felt great. I was able to help my team get the dub. After that game, well, the Georgia State coach was on the sideline at that game, and he actually came to see one of my teammates, but I was able to capitalize off my opportunities and get a scholarship offer. So then after that game, that's when I just kept balling, and then that's when everything just popped off.
How do you feel about Georgia? I hear you've got a decision coming up on July the 27th at Media Day here. How do you feel about Georgia? Why is Georgia one of your main contenders?
Georgia, it's a wonderful school that I can see myself playing at. They have great coaches. It's a great culture down there. I could tell it's a football town, so I may receive much love down there. My mom loves everything about it, the facility and everything about it. Coach Kirby Smart, he's a great coach. The back end coach, they're wonderful, and I can see myself playing for them one day.
What's up, guys? So that's Jontavius Wyman. Did you hear that story about Mr. Everything out of Jonesboro High School? Man, that sounds like something ripped out of a movie. Did you hear that? He missed practice, so he couldn't start on defense. He starts out the game on offense, and he fumbles the ball, and then he goes back in on defense, and he gives up a touchdown, and then he kind of gets another. He's on the ground, I believe, after another potential turnover, and he's like, man, what else could go wrong? And then everything else goes right. He gets a pick 6 for a touchdown. I believe he goes on the offensive side and throws a touchdown, catches a touchdown, gets another pick 6. He has 4 touchdowns at halftime, and then he also picks off another pass. This was against Dutchtown. Pretty good, solid year in and year out program. And, man, that's how you make up for that tough start, that type of talent right there. He's seen as a top 100 prospect for On3, 4-star athlete. He's set to decide on Saturday. I believe they'll do so at the school's media day on Saturday. So Jontavius Wyman, potentially, is this a potential take? Is this a potential commitment for Georgia in the 2026 class? Will Georgia's 2026 class go up to 2? Well, potentially. I think that's on the table there with a talented athlete like Jontavius Wyman out of Jonesboro High School. We'll see, but we wanted to let you guys know a little bit about him here on Before the Hedges to give you a good preview. All right, guys. Who just committed on Saturday? That was when Georgia's recruiting class went up to 21. So it's legal. Georgia's 21. Georgia's class is legal. They're still number 3 in the country, I believe. Some other schools, LSU, are climbing hard, but Georgia still remains number 3. They got the commitment on Saturday from 4-star interior offensive lineman Cortez Smith out of Parkview High School. Georgia's had some pretty great luck with Parkview High School and offensive linemen. John Stinchcomb, Matt Stinchcomb, other great names like Zeb McKenzie as well out of Parkview and Lilburn. Well, I was at his commitment ceremony on Saturday, and Georgia ended up with, I believe, their 7th highest rated recruit in the class, maybe 8th highest rated recruit in the class now. Cortez Smith, I saw him start for Parkview when he was just 13 years old. He will be just 17 years old this fall when he turns 17 in October. He'll be at Bulldog on the sidelines in Athens in the fall of 2025. Still 17 until he turns 18 in October. Really impressive prospect. He kind of embraces the path set by Cedric Von Granger in Athens. DawgNation conversation. We're bringing it to you tonight with the latest commitment of the class. Let's listen to what Cortez Smith had to say when he's kind of basking in the afterglow. You guys have heard of visit highs. Well, what about commitment glow? Check it out right now on Cortez Smith. Cortez, do you have what's the feeling like when you put that hat on? I mean, you probably thought about it, you've lifted about it. Is it chill bumps? Is it excitement? How would you describe it?
It's kind of nerve-wracking because nobody cheered at first. I was like, dang. Then, yeah, right, it was fun, though. I mean, it was kind of nervous.
What was kind of going through your mind once you saw everybody just kind of stand up and cheer for you? Was it like that weight lifted off your shoulders?
Yeah, it felt like kind of a celebration in a way, but it was really good at the end of the day.
Cortez, I've been to many commitment ceremony. I don't know if I've ever seen a young man come and shake the hand of everybody that was coming in early. Why? Why did you want to do that?
I mean, they come to my commitment. I mean, they've been there throughout my life. Might as well, they're showing love to me. I mean, might as well show love back, you know? I appreciate them coming.
Is there something about the identity of the Georgia offensive line that you felt like paired well with you as a player?
Yes, of course. I mean, through generations, they've always been good. And of course, like going into the newer classes, I know a lot of these younger O-linemen during the camps and throughout football in Georgia, all homegrown, most of them.
How do you feel you've prepared to be in that role? Like we've talked about it before. You embrace the Cedric comparison. You and your trainer Kevin talk about it. You watch film. Like it's a lot of pressure because he might be the greatest Georgia center in the last 10, 15 years at least. How do you embrace that grind and want to walk that same path he did?
I mean, I embrace it. It's pretty easy because like it's Cedric and friend, but I just like I want to be great. So like I gotta go off somebody's tracks to get possibly better than them one day.
Of the teams other than Georgia and all of this, was there anyone who made it the most competitive for Georgia? I know Georgia was its favorite for a long time.
I mean, it was actually really close between Georgia Tech, Miami, and Georgia. They were all pretty much almost same level, but Georgia's like weighed out the pros and cons. So not enough cons at Georgia to like decline that offer.
When was that sort of break-even point? Like when you knew, all right, Georgia separated itself from those two?
A couple of days after the OBs.
How do you feel Stacy's going to work you to pull out the very best football player you can be? Like, do you expect him to break you down and build you up? What is that? What do you think about that?
I expect him to break me down and really back up. He doesn't take it easy on nobody.
Do you remember watching Georgia practice? What went through your mind the first time you saw Georgia really get after it? Can you recreate that?
Well, I went out there and it was like Jordan Davis said all of them were still there, and Coach Smart was on the mic. I was like, man, he's going after everybody. And I was like, I want to be called out on the mic.
Have any of the other offensive line commits kind of reached out to you, Mason, anybody else?
Oh, yeah, I know Mason and Dontrell from Lynch's. I know him for a while, so we've been talking.
Mm-hmm. What have they been saying? What have they been saying at least before today? They're like, come be a dog?
Yeah, just come be a dog.
I know now you go from guys who are recruiting you to be on the offensive line to I'm sure you're going to start doing the same as some other guys. Do you have a way that you're going to approach recruiting other guys to Georgia, or anybody in particular that you're going to be trying to bring with you?
Oh, I mean, for sure I'm going to like try my best to recruit them any way possible, because like they're going to work you to your best and become the best young man you can be. But shoot, Georgia sells itself.
Is that going to be your selling point to those guys?
Yeah.
What would you say led you to be a Georgia Bulldog?
Really, just like throughout the years, it's always been like I've been going to camps young age throughout the whole life. It's just like kind of dream come true.
Number 77. Obviously, that's Devin's number.
Yeah.
And it will probably always be Devin's number. But I think I heard a story about when you got a chance to meet Devin when you were trying to take a picture with him. Can you tell me about that? Can you help recreate that story too?
I mean, it was the day before, of course, the accident, but we were taking pictures on a visit, and of course I met him because I was wearing his jersey, and he was real cool. It was a great moment to share with him because like it was crazy because like I just talked to him. Then, yeah, the parade day, that's what it was.
Was it hard for you to get the chance to wear that number for the pictures? Because I heard Devin doesn't give out his jersey or something to recruits or something like that. Did he have to tell you were worth it or something like that?
Yeah, basically.
That's crazy. And what you got a new number? Obviously, I think 77 will rotate among the offensive linemen now at Georgia. Do you have a number in mind, a new number you might wear?
No.
No? Doesn't matter?
Yeah, I just want to be on the field.
Thanks, Cortez. Everybody good?
Yeah.
There you have it, Cortez Smith. He was pretty happy afterward. One of the things, I hope you heard that question. I want to make sure you guys see it tonight on Before the Hedges. I've been to a lot of commitment ceremonies. You guys have seen me over the years. Know that one wasn't my first rodeo on Saturday, but I saw him at 13 playing his freshman year at Parkview against Marietta High, holding his own. He was still working on that snap, getting better and better. Had some bad snaps. I think he had like 4 or 5 bad snaps in his first start. But this is a young man that's state champion. This is a young man that's state champion in shot put, runner-up in the discus. Everybody in the country really wanted him. Georgia had targeted him for a good while. There was a nugget in one of the commitment stories there where Georgia really got excited about Cortez Smith when he basically manhandled a Georgia freshman defensive lineman that's on the team right now, a 2024 signee. And that's when Cortez Smith showed him everything he was all about. But great player. Number 6 IOL in the country. I think maybe he redshirts a year in Athens, and he moves on to maybe contend for that starting center spot because Cortez is the first true center Georgia has recruited since Cedric Von Granger. I can go on and on about the great things here about Cortez Smith, but really what really struck me on Saturday is you have to get there early in the media game. You have to set up, get everything ready. And Cortez was there sitting in the kind of the fellowship hall at the church, the banquet hall, whatever, and he was waiting for people to come through the door. And when they did, he stood up, came over to them, greeted them, acknowledged them, and thanked them for being there. And folks, I've never seen that before. Never seen that before. It's probably happened before, even with a program that's recruiting high-profile athletes like Georgia. I just never seen it before. I thought it was very, very, very impressive. It tells you a lot about what Cortez is all about. No matter how hard he works and how hard he trains, he's got that humbleness. He's got that genuine spirit to him where he's like, hey, they took time out of their day to come see me on a Saturday and support me as I make my commitment. Of course, that's the only way he would know how to be. So I can tell you all these things about how great Cortez Smith is, how I saw him as a freshman, he could block at center and he could reach the 3-tech, running wide zone. He could do a lot. Great feet, great competitor. But I thought that one story there really says a lot there about Cortez Smith as well. And that's the type of stuff we try to bring to you each and every Wednesday night here on Before the Hedges. What comes next? That was your Big Five. We just finished with a big Georgia commitment. Now we roll on into Question of the Week time. Question of the Week is where we try to tee something up for you guys to get your thoughts on how you're feeling about the Georgia football recruiting sphere, everything else going on right now. QOTW. This week's Question of the Week is I want to know how you're feeling about Georgia's recruiting class. And we're going to speak the Before the Hedges language. We're going to speak some Cruton language here. And I want you to think 3-star, 4, 5-star, 5, 5-star. But here are the clarifiers. This is a typical UGA class. Remember, Kirby's recruiting classes have been at least number 3 overall in every cycle since his first full cycle in 2017. Think it's typical UGA? Let me know about it. Comment below with a 3. If you think this one is better than most, especially at this time of year, give me a 4 there in the comments. And if you think there's really something special here in this class, maybe defensive side of the ball, maybe what they're doing at tight end, maybe what they're doing across the offensive line, maybe a wide receiver with a lot of James Coley finds right there that earned their way to Georgia through strong camp showings. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Give it a 3, give it a 4, give it a 5. I'm definitely right now thinking between 4 and 5. That would be my answer right now. Split the bill, split the bit, say 4.5. But I would lean towards, especially defensively, guys, especially the front 7 that's forming. If I had to sound like a DawgNation weatherman and say, we got a cloud front coming in here, we got a lot of heat coming in here, like your favorite weather person, well, I'm going to tell you, there's a storm brewing for that defensive front in the 2025 class in Athens, and it's going to be a good thing for those fans of the 2021 defense. You're going to get a remix. You're going to get a sequel, and this might be a sequel that's even better than the original right there. So that's something to think about here on DawgNation Before the Hedges. We typically do the segue. We do the 2-step. where we dubstep to the commitment boards. We take a look at the major food groups. We talk a lot of specifics. We talk a lot of news. We talk a lot of perspective. We discuss a lot of intel on this show, but we also have to ground it all with perspective and a good snapshot of what's going on with Georgia's class. That right there is what the commitment board is for right now. Now up to 21 commitments in the class. Bo Walker has picked up a 4-star. Recently, you've got Ryan Montgomery. Look at those wide receivers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Landon Roldan, Tyler Williams, Talon Taylor, Thomas Blackshear. I think maybe we might see 1 or 2 of those guys at the cookout this weekend. Ethan Barbour doing a lot of golf lately. Ethan is becoming quite the golfer. I hear he's probably maybe handicapped less than 10 right now. Elias Williams, the 6'8" All-State football player and basketball player at Camden County. Now Stacy Searles has got 3 offensive linemen. What you're looking at there, we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Georgia has its eyes on 3 offensive tackles in the class right now. That's what it feels like to me. There's your offensive class breakdown. Let's shift to the other side of the ball right here, and let's take a look at the guys on the defensive side. You've got Christian Garrett. Certainly, he can probably throw the shot put from his home, kind of in his home school at Prince Avenue Christian. I believe he lives in maybe not too far outside there, outside of Bogart. But Stephon Shivers, the nose out of Nashville now, he's going to be in town this weekend. Zayden Walker, the 5-star. 4-star Isaiah Gibson. Everybody gets these questions for me, and I try to explain it each and every week. Some services have Isaiah Gibson as a 5-star. They're certainly right to do so, but some of the composites still have him as a 4-star because not all the national services, ESPN, Rivals, 247, On 3, are of an accord there with Isaiah being a 5-star. That's why he's a 4-star. On the composites, Darren Kennebong out of New Jersey. He committed to Georgia in the middle of G-Day back in April. He plans to be in Athens this weekend. Shamari Earls, he also plans to be in Athens this weekend. Jalen Morgan told me he also plans to be in Athens this weekend. That's your breakdown on defense. 1 3-star, 1 5-star, and then 4 4-stars right there. There's your breakdown. Now let's look at this beautiful, glorious map. Georgia right now has 21 total commitments. Sometimes you just got to stare at it, right? They have 13 in-state, 8 out-of-state, 11 offensive side, 10 defensive side. Georgia's 3 nationally, but LSU is certainly knocking on the door right there with everything you see right there. 17 commitments are in the SEC footprint. 4 commitments are beyond the SEC footprint right there. The offensive commits, Georgia has the most commitments with 13. Georgia now has 4 of their top 10 prospects in the entire class on the offensive side. All right, next up, we take a look at our top targets. That thing gets slim, like it's on the Peloton every day. Anthony Rogers in town this weekend out of Bama. He's committed to Bama as well. They call him Turbo, like his game, like his film. A playmaker, a 3-down playmaker, a guy that's going to gash defenses on the wheel route, gash them on the screens, really gash defenses, especially getting those matchup problems when you have to deal with a running back that can really outrun the fastest backers and safeties in the country. Nick Brooks, he's one of your tackles here out of Iowa, former Iowa commitment. He decommitted. Then you've got this young man, Damola Ajundahan out of Duluth, Georgia. Good size, really a true offensive tackle prospect, perhaps the only true, pure offensive tackle prospect for Georgia that's on the top targets list right now. Cortez Smith actually no longer on the top targets list. He just committed to Georgia in the last cycle, in the last week there. That name slims that top targets down even more. Moving on, you've got the next group here, and it's a pretty stout group. You know the names: Elijah Griffin, Justus Terry, and David Sanders Jr. David Sanders is going to take some visits. I think Nebraska, Ohio State, Georgia, and Tennessee are the schools there. Those are the finalists. It really feels, keep saying this over and over, David Sanders was the number one target for the longest time, but it just feels like Tennessee and Ohio State are putting together a package, putting together a pitch there that's going to be probably sweeter than what Georgia will be able to put together. There's also Elijah Griffin and Justus Terry. We've discussed them already in the show. Those are two of the banner headliner visitors that are currently expected to be in Athens this weekend. You guys remember those? You can remember those by that big smile on Ryan Montgomery's face when he was telling us about the potential of adding those two big uglies, big nasties, big slobber knockers, big trench monsters. That's what they're called in Athens if they go on to play for Travion Scott and his room in Athens. Those are your top targets. Who's just off the list? That one also keeps shrinking. Jonte Gilbert out of Douglas High in Atlanta, former Ohio State commitment, committing on August the 10th, taking a visit to Georgia. It really sounds like it's going to come down to North Carolina State and Georgia. Depends on what kind of push Georgia makes for Jonte Gilbert right now at this time. That's my feeling. Another cornerback in the class who took an official in June, Ben Hanks. Nation's number one linebacker for on 3, Ty Jackson. Wait and see what happens there. Is that Florida State? Is that Alabama? Where does he wind up? Those are 3 of the remaining top targets I feel that are on the list right now for Georgia. Now, there's a name or two out there. I think Georgia will determine as the season goes along perhaps how interested they'll get in flipping guys from other schools. Maybe I can find myself generating a flip list later on in the cycle as everything just keeps condensing and keeps condensing. One of the names there that needed to be on the top targets list there, we got to make sure we remember the name Juan Gaston Jr. Out of Westlake High School. He's deciding on August the 2nd. Major target for Georgia there. Juan can play guard or tackle, although Georgia has strictly Juan has told me in the past that Georgia is strictly looking at him as a right tackle, left tackle. I don't think Juan has any sort of preference towards one or the other as much as it is just a preference to getting on the field. Guys, that is your top targets. That is your just off the list. You guys have any questions? Let me take a good let me clear my throat right there. Brady Payne, how are you doing? Tristan West, how are you? Tough stuff. I see your question. I see you working there in the comment section. Tristan West says 4. That's his answer for how he feels about the Georgia current recruiting class. Appreciate that interaction. Angela Smith, I like that take. She says, answering this week's question of the week, I said, give it a 3, 4, or 5. 3, typical Georgia. 4, better than normal for Georgia. Or 5, potentially one for the ages. Angela Smith weighs in and says, right now, it's a 4, kind of the way I felt. But then if Georgia can close with Terry and Griffin, it would be a 5-star. Tough stuff. I don't think Michael Carroll has is that really a flip watch there? I know Georgia would love to have him. I know Alabama is really incentivizing commitments this time. It's kind of feeling a little bit like, to me, a little bit like what Texas A&M did a couple years ago. But Alabama is very active, and they've put together 3 really good offensive linemen in this class. Michael Carroll, he did transfer to IMG Academy. That was sort of a reversal of a recent IMG policy where they were not going to take one semester seniors right there. But interesting, Hunter Lacey weighing in for good thought there about walk-ons, good thought about wondering on what's going on there. C.K. Emmett fans bringing up that wants to see David Sanders come on down the track. Tristan West, I think Alabama's probably the biggest threat to Georgia for Justus Terry. And you can't discount the Tide, especially with the type of stuff they've been putting into recruiting as of late, especially with that little extra probably giddy up they're trying to give Kalen DeBoer in his first class in the South, because a lot of folks are waiting to see how good of a ball coach he will be, how good will he manage key situations, how good will he manage the talent on the Alabama roster, and then how well his offensive philosophy, his systems, his fundamental understanding of the game, how well that will work in the SEC compared to all that success he had in the Pac-12. So good thing to see right there. Guys, Before the Hedges just happened. We went through, if you're just joining us, please get back. Go to the front of the show. You've got an interview there with Cortez Smith. You've got commitment watch potentially there for Georgia with a key 2026 in-state target. We talked about the new NCAA legislation. Folks, let me say this one more time. Let me underscore it. Let me boldface it. That was big. BIG, how rosters, scholarship allotments, everybody has worked and operated under 85, 85, 85 for years. Now it looks like the NCAA is going to jack that up to 105 scholarships. Likely leads to the chatter about the end of walk-ons, but that would mean maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 in some years, some leaner years, some heavier years, extra signees for Georgia in the class. I thought that was significant. That's what we talk about each and every week here on Before the Hedges. We also discussed 5-star visitors, and we also took a chance to look at some recent video there with Ryan Montgomery sharing his thoughts on what it would be like to play with some of those in-state 5-stars in the 2025 class that are, some of them are currently on the commitment list. Some are wait and see right there. All right, guys. John Adams, I see a late breaking incoming oncoming comment from you here on the YouTube feed. Who are the committed risers in this class? I would expect to see risers. I think Dontrell Glover should rise. Most likely Landon Roland should rise. Folks, he's 6'1", 200. He runs 4.4s like we're sitting here going down the grocery aisles at your favorite Kroger. That recruiting ranking will rise. I think Todd Robinson's will continue to rise. Bo Walker probably going to stay, maybe a little bit of a bump there, but you by and large, you're going to see a lot of that class come together. I like the fact that, I don't know if a guy like Gibson can get much higher, but I think he should go significantly higher in the composite. I think he's currently number 39 in the 24/7 Sports Composite. Folks, I think Isaiah Gibson is a top 15 prospect in this class. That's my thoughts. We call it Intel. We call it Sentell's Intel. I'm Jeff Sentell. That has been your Intel. We thank you guys for hanging out with us on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. And we'll see you guys real soon on the pages of DawgNation. Got DawgNation.com. Got a little teaser for you as well. Since you're watching, let me give you a little nugget here. Special edition on Friday morning. Friday is usually the recruiting day for DawgNation Daily. You will get to see me and Kaylee Mansell in a special Friday a.m. big show slot Before the Hedges at 10 a.m. in the normal DawgNation Daily time slot. Can't wait to have Brandon back next week. I know you guys have missed him. I've missed seeing him each and every week, but I thought this week, the compilation of shows, you got the tell-all with BA. You saw the DawgNation Roundtable today with John Stinchcomb, Jake Fromm, and Terrence Edwards. I thought that was a very strong piece of content. You guys haven't seen it, go find it. It's on your YouTube feed. It's on your Facebook feed. It's all where you find DawgNation. You can even find it on the X platform if you go back and look for it today as well. Really thought it was fascinating what they talked. They told some old war stories. They talked about their hopes for Georgia Bulldogs in the NFL. But I thought one of the best parts of the show was when they discussed technology and how they expect it to expand and enhance the college game. Guys, that's really your intel. We'll check you out later on the pages of DawgNation.com.